Have you ever wondered if you should fire somebody for being late? Well, in today's video, I'm gonna show you how else you might be able to handle it, or if it's really time to let them go. Hey, it's Jason Everett from highperformancesalon.com. And if you've ever had to fire somebody, or worse, you've been fired before, you know emotions can get hot. Now, I've had to fire people, and yes, before I've actually been fired. So truth's out of the bag. You now know I've been fired before from a job that I didn't like, and it maybe has happened to you too. But here's what happens if you've ever been fired or you're doing the firing, is that at that moment, the emotions are through the roof. One of my good friends, Blair Singer, says when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And when you have two people with high emotions, you have two idiots talking to each other, and that does nobody any good. So what happens if somebody shows up late and your emotion is high, they freak out, should you fire them right on the spot? Well, here's a couple questions that I think will help you determine if it's the right time to do so. So I gotta first of all ask you, how clear are your rules? Do you have a written and posted set of rules in the salon that everybody agrees to and follows on a regular basis? And then number two, do you have consequences if those rules are broken? Are there consequences like, does it cost you $5? Are there consequences like you have to do extra duties? Are there other consequences like you lose free days? Like what happens if you actually miss the being on time portion of your job? What actually happens? So if you don't have rules, let's start there. And if you do have rules, do you have consequences? Because it's hard to enforce rules that aren't there or don't have any consequences. That's the first thing that I would say is before you go spout off and fire somebody, double check that and put those in place first. Now, the other thing I would say is don't fire on the first offense. There are genuine things that can cause people to be late, so you don't have to fire them right away. But I would say, look, the first time you might want to give them a verbal warning. The second time you might say, look, this is continuing to be a pattern. If it happens again, we're going to end up parting ways. And on the third time, if they actually show up late and you've already had this conversation, then they've really fired themselves, especially if those rules are in place. So I hope that was helpful in determining if you should let that person go. It is never a fun scenario on either side of that discussion, but I hope this has been helpful and given you some good framework and some context for how you can have that discussion. Until then, have an awesome week and watch another video.